Welcome to r/Maliciouscompliance, where OP humbles a Karen over a muffin. Our next Reddit post is from Tyrannix. Once upon a time, I worked at a Wendy's back in high school, and at the time, Wendy's had just started to experiment with breakfast foods like coffee and muffins. The muffins came frozen. At the time, the way to prepare the muffins was to put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds. It's a regular morning shift, and this Karen, who had already ordered, comes back to the counter and says, "This muffin is too hot. I want one that isn't heated up." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have to microwave them because they come in frozen." "I don't care. I want a muffin that wasn't put in the microwave." And in a classic move, she turns around and goes back to her table. I could be mistaken since this happened so long ago, but I think the conversation went longer than that. And there was another coworker there to back me up, telling this lady that the muffins were frozen. I brought her the muffin. It was cold as ice, hard as a rock, and you couldn't even peel the paper wrapper off because it was all frozen together. I set the muffin down on the plate by itself in front of the lady and her 3 friends and said, in my best customer service voice, "Here's your muffin that has not been put in the microwave, just like you ordered." The look of defeat on her face before I turned around and walked away. My only regret is not waiting longer to see more of the aftermath. I wish I could have seen her friends laughing at her, the look of disappointment as she tried to bite into a frozen baked good. But the cool guys never turn around to look back at the explosion as they're walking away from it. That, and being the timid little teenager I was, I went back to hide behind the counter before she had the chance to rage at me for another incorrectly temperatured muffin. When I went to clean off the table after they left, the muffin was still there, wrapper half torn off of it, a piece missing like she tried to tear it off with her fingers. A small packet of margarine was beside it, opened but untouched. In the amount of time it took her to complain and get her new muffin, the original muffin would have been cooled off enough to eat. But instead, this lady ends up wasting 2 muffins and her own money. This top comment, Real Ultimate Papo, says, "Sometimes malicious compliance is best served ice cold." Our next Reddit post is from Jabasius. I am a qualified dispensing optician in France. Qualified dispensing opticians here are trained in physiological optics and visual analysis. We can adapt a prescription when necessary, but we're not allowed to create one from scratch. Back when I was learning the trade, a colleague of mine had a perfect malicious compliance moment with a customer. At the time, a medical prescription wasn't legally required to buy glasses. This customer had seen 3 different ophthalmologists, received 3 different prescriptions, and decided to cherry-pick the parts he liked from each one to build his own improved prescription. The worst part was the addition in his progressive lenses. He wanted one glass to be focused at 67 centimeters and the other set for 40 centimeters. Think of walking with a stiletto heel on one foot and a flat shoe on the other. Unless your body is built for it, you're going to have a bad time. My colleague explained repeatedly that this was a terrible idea. The customer replied, "I'm a professional photographer. I know optics. Just do what I tell you." My colleague warned him that our satisfaction guarantee would not apply and strongly advised against it as part of his professional duty. And he had the customer sign a document acknowledging all of it. Remember, my colleague was a licensed optician, not just a salesperson giving an opinion. The customer doubled down. "It'll work. I know what I'm doing." So my colleague did exactly what he asked. The lenses arrived. A high-end pair of progressive lenses costing about $850. He put them on. "This is incredibly uncomfortable. I can't see properly." "Yep, but that's not normal." "Actually, it is." "So what are we gonna do?" "We? Nothing." Silence. In the end, we were kind enough to offer a discount on a replacement pair made with a sensible prescription. We could technically have used one of our manufacturer adaptation allowances and replaced the lenses at no cost. But those exist for genuine adaptation issues or prescription errors. This was none of those. The lenses were made exactly as ordered and performed exactly as everyone except the customer expected them to. You know, of all the people to argue with, I feel like a medical professional is bottom of the list. They objectively know more than you do, so if your doctor says this, then just believe it. Down in the comments, we have this story from Tom Kazansky. "People are morons. I had a 50-year-old patient who was negative 2.5 nearsighted. That means she has blurry vision at a distance and needs glasses for driving and TV. But because of her nearsightedness, she could read well up close without glasses. She told me she wanted LASIK. I told her that once she was no longer nearsighted, she would need to wear reading glasses for all near things. Essentially, she would be paying thousands of dollars to trade distance glasses for near glasses. I refused to refer her because I knew she would hate it. Several months later, she's on my schedule as a post-LASIK follow-up. Turns out she self-referred herself and got the surgery done. Our talk went something like, "I see you had LASIK done. How's it going?" "Those idiots did a terrible job. I can't read a thing anymore." "Okay, good. It sounds like it worked exactly as expected." "No, I was told I would be clear without glasses." We then opened up my last chart and I showed her where I typed in all caps, "Patient will not see at near sight after getting LASIK. No referral to be made as she will hate the results." She then tried to blame the surgeons for not telling her, which I'm sure they did. Our next Reddit post is from Statement Jazzlike. At the time this happened, I was a 33-year-old woman working with a bunch of mostly misogynistic, middle-aged men. This happened in 1985. I know, I'm old. I was working for the USDA Forest Service in the Rocky Mountains as an engineering technician designing logging roads and supervising a few surveying crews surveying in said roads. But part of my job was to fight forest fires during the summer fire season whenever they needed us. This fire happened in the district next to ours, so I was familiar with most of the roads since I like to go four-wheeling on weekends. For the fire, I was assigned in the communications room manning the radios, taking requests for resupplying equipment as needed, and any other various jobs. These jobs were rotated to give people breaks from sitting at a desk for 12 hours. One day, instead of a helicopter dropping lunches to the line crews way up the nearest mountains, someone decided that a truck could make the trek up to deliver the lunches to them in an old dirt track road. I was chosen for the job. For some reason, some higher up from the regional office decided he wanted to go along to see what was happening up close. Now, in my regular job, I was used to traveling on a lot of backcountry roads, so I was very comfortable and skillful on most roads. He had me drive since I was familiar with these roads and hadn't been sitting on my backside in the regional office. A mile or so up the mountain, the road started getting narrower and narrower until it was basically just two tracks in the side of a steep mountain. I told my passenger that I was getting a little nervous because there was nowhere to turn around and go back down. He said to keep going, and basically, being my boss, I did. Until the road got so narrow and with boulders too large to go over, there was no way to keep going. I was not looking forward to backing down this narrow road 2 miles, but I knew that I could. He insisted I turn around right there, on this narrow dirt track. I tried to talk him out of it, but he insisted. Now, when turning around with a steep mountain on one side and a drop-off on the other, you always point the front end towards the drop-off and the back end towards the mountain. I knew that it would take a lot of mini turns and time to maneuver the pickup around, but again, I was confident I could do it. In about the middle of all these turnings, with the front end of the car pointing out, the guy insisted that I could move just a little bit farther forward. Again, this guy is some big, high, muckety-muck who could make or break my career. So, internally rolling my eyes, I inched it forward with the truck tipping just slightly down the mountain. But when I tried to put it in reverse, we didn't move because I didn't have enough weight in the bed of the truck to get any traction. I just turned and stared at him. At least he had the decency to look a little sheepish. We ended up having to call on the radio for another truck to pull us out. And a helicopter had to deliver other lunches to the fire crews, albeit late. When the fire superintendent later asked me what happened, I told him the truth. He told me I should have trusted my original instincts, but didn't totally blame me. From what I understand, this desk jockey wasn't allowed to visit any more fires. Our next Reddit post is from Don't Panda. Years ago, a friend had people over for a pool party. I offered to help cook the burgers and hot dogs on the grill. People ate faster than I could cook, so there were a few people who were waiting for their burgers. This guy, Jay, asked for a burger. Based on the people who were waiting, the burger he was going to get had just hit the grill a minute before. But Jay was hungry and hangry and began insisting I give him his burger now. So I did. The burger he was going to get was placed on his bun. He was mad, but he didn't have many options, so he asked if I would cook it first, and I agreed. He was much more polite the second time. Our next Reddit post is from Secure Corner. Many years ago, after decades of saving, my husband and I were doing well enough to finally build our dream home. After we moved in, we still had to have our yard leveled and sodded and arranged it early the next spring. That night, I was out watering the backyard sod when I saw my neighbor's wife, Chris, using a measuring tape between our homes. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said that we had sodded a section of their yard. I told her that we'd followed the sticks that the builder had left. She said the builders must have screwed up and rudely insisted that we had stolen part of their yard. Not wanting to have an ongoing beef with her and her husband, Keith, we agreed to have our property resurveyed. When we did, we got one hell of a surprise. The actual property line wasn't halfway between our two houses, as we believed. It was actually much closer to their house. They owned a construction company and had built their house too close to the property line. This was an insane mistake for a professional. Still wanting to be good neighbors, we offered to split the cost and labor of a good neighbor fence using one of the 4 accepted fence styles allowed. My husband kept asking Keith when he wanted to start, but Keith always had one excuse after another. Then Keith rudely told Dan to stop bothering him. Dan was furious. He bought all the materials and built the fence himself. He'd been planning to put the fence halfway between our houses, but our neighbor was so rude that Dan built the fence just inside of our property line, making the neighbor's house look terrible. The neighbor's husband came over pissed as hell, but Dan reminded him that he and his wife wanted a new property survey, and he put off the fence for months. Our fence was magnificent because Dan was a carpenter and I'm a great painter. The neighbor's husband built a fence next to ours, but it was ugly, badly built, and not one of the approved designs. He was forced to tear it down later. That was rSlash Maliciouscompliance, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.